Stop me if you've heard this one before. Apple releases a new computer. It looks exactly the same as the old one. It costs exactly the same. And they look you dead in the eye and tell you it is the most revolutionary, magical device they have ever built. Well, get ready, because history is about to repeat itself. We finally have concrete details on the Mac Mini M5, and if you were expecting a massive design overhaul or a feature that changes the way you use a desktop, you might want to lower your expectations. In fact, bury them. Apple is once again pretending it's doing something bold, when in reality, it feels like they are just warming up yesterday's leftovers and calling it a meaningful refresh. The Mac Mini M5 is shaping up to be Apple's latest exercise in doing the absolute minimum while expecting a standing ovation from all of us. Let's be real about what is happening here. We are looking at a release timeline of 2026. By then, the M4 Mac Mini will have settled in as the default choice for almost everyone. But reports are now confirming that Apple will roll out this new machine with the M5 and M5 Pro chips. And the vibe is completely different this time. Usually, there is mystery. Usually, there is hype. This time, there is just a sense of inevitability. And yes, to rip the bandage off immediately, it's going to look exactly the same. We're talking about the same metal box, the same footprint, the same ports, and the same aluminum aesthetic. If you blink, you will genuinely miss the upgrade. It is almost impressive how committed Apple is to this chassis. They found a shape that works, and they have decided that we are never allowed to have anything else. The problem isn't just the design, though. The problem is that the suspense is dead. By the time this computer hits the shelves in 2026, the M5 chip won't be a mystery. Thanks to Apple's predictable release cycle, they will have likely already stuffed the M5 processor into everything else they sell. We're talking about the Vision Pro refresh, the M5 iPad Pro, and likely the next generation of MacBook Pros. By the time the Mac Mini gets its turn, the M5 will be old news. We already know what this chip brings to the table, and spoiler alert, it is not revolutionary. It is evolutionary. It is a stepping stone. It is the definition of fine. Let's talk about the numbers, because this is where Apple usually tries to dazzle us. The CPU gains for the M5 generation are expected to land somewhere around 10 to 15% over the M4. Now, in the real world, that is acceptable. It is a standard year-over-year bump. But let's be honest with ourselves. Apple will not market this as a 10% bump. They will market this as a generational leap. They will show us charts with vague y-axes that go up and to the right. They will use words like blazing and turbocharged. But for 99% of users, you will not feel a single thing. Outside of running benchmark tests to brag to your friends or looking at marketing slides, the difference between opening a web browser on an M4 and an M5 will be indistinguishable. However, the GPU is where they're really going to try to get your applause. The rumor mill suggests we're still looking at a 10-core GPU for the base model, which sounds stagnant on paper. But somehow, through architecture tweaks and efficiency gains, it is rumored to be up to 45% faster than the M4's graphics performance. That sounds incredibly impressive until you take a step back and realize what is actually happening. Apple has been milking the same core counts for years. They keep the number of cores the same, but make them magically faster. While a 45% jump is nothing to sneeze at, it begs the question of why we aren't seeing more physical cores in the base model yet. They are optimizing the existing architecture to within an inch of its life rather than giving us more raw hardware to play with. Then we have to talk about memory. If you thought Apple was going to finally stop being stingy with RAM, think again. The memory situation stays painfully predictable. We are looking at 16 gigabytes as the base standard. Now, credit where credit is due. 16 is better than the insulting 8 gigabytes we dealt with for years. But for a machine launching in 2026, 16 gigabytes is the bare minimum for a future-proof device. You will have options to upgrade to 24 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes, but you already know the catch. You have to be willing to pay Apple's infamous RAM tax. It is the most expensive memory in the world, not because it is made of gold, but because they soldered it to the board and you have no other choice. There's one area, However, where Apple might actually be throwing us a bone. The only genuinely overdue change is regarding storage. There are strong whispers that Apple might finally, generously, move the base storage from a laughable 256 gigabytes to 512 gigabytes in 2026. This is huge if true. In a world where one 4K video file or a couple of modern games can eat up 50 gigs instantly, 256 was becoming an insult. Moving the baseline to 512 would make the entry-level machine actually usable for professionals without needing an external drive dangling off the back immediately. It is a move they should have made 3 years ago, but we will take it. Now let's shift gears to the Pro side of things. If you're a power user, the Mac Mini M5 Pro is where Apple may actually try a little harder. This isn't just a simple clock speed boost. The M5 Pro is rumored to come in 2 distinct flavors again. You will likely see a binned 14-core version for the entry-level Pro and a fully unlocked 16-core model for those who want max performance. The architecture breakdown is interesting here. The 4 efficiency cores are sticking around to handle background tasks and keep the machine quiet, but the performance cores are scaling up to 10 or 12, depending on the model. That is a lot of horsepower in a tiny box. This core count is genuinely impressive, but it comes with a massive asterisk. The Mac Mini is small. It has a good fan, but it is not a wind tunnel. When you pack that many high-performance cores into a small metal square, heat becomes the enemy. The performance is only impressive assuming Apple doesn't throttle at the moment it gets warm. We have seen this before where the chips are capable of amazing speeds, but the thermal physics of the chassis holds them back. If they can manage the heat, this thing will be a beast. If they can't, you are paying for performance you can't actually sustain. The memory options on the Pro model are also getting a slight shakeup. RAM could start at 24 gigabytes, which is a weird number, but functional, and climb all the way to 48 gigabytes or even 64 gigabytes. And for the digital hoarders out there, storage on the Pro may begin at 512 gigabytes or 1 terabyte, stretching up to a ridiculous 4 terabytes. But let's be real, if you configure a Mac Mini with 4 terabytes of storage, you're probably paying more for the storage upgrade than the computer itself. It is an option for people whose wallets can survive the impact, but for most of us, it is just a number on a spec sheet. The irony of all this speculation is that the current model, the M4 Mac Mini, already nailed the value equation. It feels like a glitch in a matrix. The M4 Mini gives you a full, non-bin chip, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and usable storage, all launching at $599. And if you catch it on sale, it is often selling closer to $499. That was Apple accidentally being generous. That machine is so good and so cheap that it effectively cannibalizes the hype for the M5. Why wait for 2026 and a marginal upgrade when the current deal is the best value in computing right now? Context matters here. The M5 Mac Mini isn't about innovation. It isn't about redefining the desktop. It is about Apple carefully sanding the edges and asking for praise. They are refining the product line, which is fine, but they present it as if they are reinventing the wheel. With the M5 chip already proven across the Vision Pro, the iPad Pro, and the MacBook Pro updates by the time this launches, nothing here is going to surprise us. We will have seen the benchmarks. We will have seen the battery life tests on laptops. We will know exactly what this silicon is capable of. The Mac Mini will just be the last vessel to carry it. As for the timeline, leaks are pointing to a reveal at WWDC 2026. That puts us in early June for the announcement. If history serves, availability will follow shortly after, likely by mid-June. It is a classic summer release. They will announce it alongside the new Versi. ONs of macOS talk about how the hardware and software are designed together, and then put it up for pre-order. It is a routine we all know by heart. Pricing is expected to stay the same, and this is the double-edged sword. It will likely remain at $599 for the base model and around $1,399 for the Pro. On one hand, it is good that inflation hasn't jacked up the price. On the other hand, Apple is giving you slightly more power, charging you the same, and hoping you forget that this is refinement dressed up as progress. They want you to feel like you're getting a steal, when really you are just getting the standard technology progression that should happen anyway. So what does that leave us? Should you be excited? Maybe if you're still sitting on an M1 Mac Mini or an Intel machine. If you're coming from those older devices, the jump to M5 will feel like teleporting into the future. The speed, the snappy response, the graphical capabilities, it will all feel new. But if you have an M2 or an M4, this is a skip. It is a hard skip. The gains are simply not there to justify the cost and the hassle of upgrading. The Mac Mini M5 represents the maturity of Apple Silicon. And maturity is just a nice word for boring. The exciting days of the M1, where performance doubled overnight, are gone. We are now in the era of incremental gains. We are in the era of good enough. Apple knows they have the best small desktop on the market, and because they have no real competition in this specific form factor, they don't need to try very hard. They can give us 10% here, 40% there, keep the same box, keep the same price, and still sell millions of them. Ultimately, the M5 Mac Mini is going to be a fantastic computer. It will be fast, silent, and reliable. It will handle video editing, coding, and heavy browsing without breaking a sweat. But let's not pretend it's exciting. Let's not pretend it's bold. It is the safe play. It is the calculated move. It is Apple doing what Apple does best, giving us exactly what we need, nothing more, and charging us a premium for the privilege of staying in their ecosystem. If you're in the market for a desktop in 2026, it will be the one to buy. Just don't expect it to change your life. Expect it to be a slightly faster version of the metal box you already know. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the future of the Mac Mini, do me a massive favor. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more honest tech truth. Share this video with your friends who are thinking about upgrading, and hit that bell icon so you're always the first to know when we upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.